It's amazing how spiritual you become when somebody tell you that you have cancer or any other kind of illness. I mean, I became very spiritual. I used to pray in bed, but after I was told you have cancer, I started getting on my knees. I was praying. I was so embarrassed. I know God looked at me and said, you know what? You getting on my last nerve. And I was trying to cut a deal with God. I said, look, even if you don't heal me right now, can you move the cancer to my knees? I don't need two knees, okay? Or maybe my ankle. I don't need two ankles. This is my pre-saved years. And so I had to go back in for some thorough evaluation. And he said, your PSA is 2,400. And I asked, what does that mean? He said, prostate specific antigen, 1 to 4 is normal. I said, oh. He said, there's something else. I said, what is it? He said, cancer's metastasized to 7 areas of your body. I said, okay. He said, did you hear what I just said? I said, yes. I said, that's good. He said, why would you say that? I said, because 7 is my lucky number. I was born February the 17th. I'm one of 7 children. Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho 7 times. Naaman dipped himself in the river Jordan 7 times. I said, 7 is my lucky number. And I asked him, that's this the Dr. Golson. I said, is there anything else? He said, yes. I said, what is it? He said, and you're ugly too. I said, come on, man. This is serious. He said, I know this. I understand this. I never tell my patients they're terminally ill. What I say is that my knowledge and my skills have terminated. I determine the diagnosis. You and God determines the prognosis. Wow. That was major. I'm so very fortunate to have had someone to distract me from fear, false evidence appearing real, to activate my faith, finding answers in the heart. And it's a partnership. I mean, I changed my lifestyle. I eat a lot of vegetables. I feel like a silly wabbit. And I laugh a lot. I read this book called The Anatomy of Illness by Norman Cousins, and he was a physicist who was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And he did some research and found that laughter is very important. Every time you get angry, anger weakens your immune system for 4 to 5 hours. But laughter, it boosts your immune system for over 24 hours. So when I heard that, I laugh all the time. I laugh in my sleep. So here's something I want to share with you. Answer this question. Why am I here? The people who are able to handle a diagnosis and put themselves on the path of recovery are people who have some cause, something that they believe in. And I'm suggesting to you, don't just look to get better, but look to find ways in which you can be used by God to make a difference on the planet.
Bravo.
All right. Thanks to our buddy Les, who sent that message to us. And thanks, everybody. Good evening. I want to welcome you all.
Good evening.
Eddie Groves here. And welcome to Good Day, Good Health's Men Health Forum. I want to start by thanking each of you for being here tonight, whether you're joining from your living room, your car, your man cave. This space is for you. June is Men's Health Month, and while the world doesn't always give us a space to pause and check in with ourselves, tonight we take that space. And this isn't just like another webinar. This is a real conversation, a judgment-free zone where we can talk about the things that often go unspoken, like our physical health, our mental health, our relationships, our stress, our victories, our fears, and our future. I'm honored to have co-hosting with me Good Day, Good Health's own Dr. Robert Benson.
What's up, Eddie?
And yes, sir. And Tips to Be Fit Man, Vince Faust. We have some powerful testimonies from men who want to share their experiences in order to help others. But just as important, we want to hear from you. So tonight is about brotherhood, resilience, and action. And whether you faced a health scare, you're trying to stay on track, or you're just here to listen and learn, you're in the right place. So let's walk away empowered, informed, and connected. So take a deep breath, settle in, and get ready for an evening that just might change your life or someone else's. So let's get started. I want to start out by bringing up an issue that a lot of men have, which is health. And one of the things that we seem to, I don't want to say there's a stigma, but there is an idea that men don't take care of their health. And part of it is true. I can vouch for that because I know I don't take care of my health like I should. But then we have events that happen to us that make us realize that we are all human. We have a lifespan, and we start to think about the things that are important to us. And I wanted to start this off by bringing Vince on to talk about some of the things that men can do to change their mindsets and thinking about health. So jump on there, Vince.
Well, one of the first things I would recommend for people to do is get a checkup. Get one of those yearly checkups that encompasses getting blood drawn, getting the doctor put hands on where he actually touches your body and actually talks to you. Now, if he does that within like 10, 15 minutes, he didn't do a thorough check on you. He needs to check you out. He needs to take time to listen to what's going on with your body. And if you find a doctor that is doing that, who just rushes through looking at his watch and trying to figure out how can I get this thing over real quick, or they send a non-doctor in earlier to talk with you, and then he's supposed to be jotting down notes. What you should do is jot down your notes. Write down those things that are bothering you, things that are going wrong or don't seem natural to you or good for you. Write them down, because a lot of times you get to the office, I remember when they would ask me, so, well, how are you doing? I said, okay. And everything just went out the window. So now I write everything down. If I got something that's bothering me, something that's been going on for a little while, I try to write down, try to let them know when it started, what it is, how it makes me feel. And we also have to look at the mental health part of it, because we look at, something physically bothering us, and men, they tend to want to just shake things off. They say, well, I'm okay, but mentally they might not be okay too. Just because you're going there for something physical, you should also talk to your doctor about your mental health.
Well, Vince, let me ask you about that. When it comes to mental health, see, there is a stigma in our culture that, the man has to be strong. You have to be able to withstand whatever pressures come to you. You have to, support your family. You have to work hard and all those things. But I think that's part of the reason why we have such a dire situation with mental health in the men, at least. And how can we deal with that? What are the mindsets we have to change?
If it's like looking at something physical, let's say you got a cough or you got a headache. If your mental health is not there, or if you're not mentally on cue, or you're feeling like, hey, I can't go on, then you're not 100%. And how are you going to say, well, I'm going to take care of my family if you're not mentally 100%? That's what we're trying to shoot for. We're trying to shoot for you being physically and mentally healthy. And this thing about, oh, you got to be tough, you can just suck it up. Those times are over. We got to stop sucking it up, because it ain't working. We get to that point where we do something stupid, or we begin to act other than what we would normally act like, like being grouchy, moody, withdrawn, isolating, all those things, not showing emotion. we need to show emotion. We have to. I'm not saying that, anything goes. And yeah, we have to restrain ourselves from some things, but mentally, you have to be there too, just like with your physical health. And that may require some time talking to a specialist, talking to somebody that works in that field. Now, here again, like I said, with the guy who's taking your physical health, you want somebody that's going to listen to you. Now, those people, when we talk about mental health, yeah, there's some medications that are maybe involved, but we have to have someone that's going to listen to us and not just in a few seconds come up with everything. Because a lot of times mental health can be affected by your physical health also. A lot of times people don't realize that, when you're not eating right, not getting exercise, not getting enough sleep, those things can affect your mental health also. So you have to get a doctor that wants to look at the total you, not just, he's got some mental health issues, but what's causing these health issues? It's not, mental health is not some magic thing where we wave a wand and it goes away, or you talk to the doctor and everything, he gives you a few things to work on, and that's it. No, organically something could be going wrong. You may not be getting enough food or right amount of vitamins. That he's got to examine you, just like the physical doctor does. He's got to examine your brain, find out what makes you tick.
Well, you know what?
Go ahead.
Real quick, Vince. I talk to my brother a lot, and one thing he told me is he is adamant about his doctor. Now, a lot of people, when you go to the doctor, you think he knows what he's talking about. I'm just going to do whatever he says, right? Mm-hmm. But like my brother said, he didn't like the way his doctor was performing. He didn't like that he didn't listen. So his determination is, hey, I'm going to get a doctor that I like. I'm going to get a doctor that I can communicate with, because if you feel comfortable with this doctor, of course, you're going to say things that you wouldn't normally say, right? Because you feel comfortable. Right. You're going to let him know, I got this pain. I got this. Hey, doc, what do you think? Because you don't think he's going to just blow it off and say, take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning. So I think that's important.
You gotta have a relationship with your doctor, and you can fire your doctor. I've fired doctors. Just say, hey, look, this is not working for me. And in fact, one time my insurance company told me, you need to fire that doctor. You're not getting the standard of care that you need to be getting. And forget his feelings. Forget he's going to feel bad about getting fired. No, it's your health. It's your well-being. So what you have to do is find somebody's going to listen. Somebody's going to take everything that you say into consideration. And it's not going to be just like one of those guys who, at the end of 15 minutes, write down something. Here's what I want you to do. No, I want a doctor that's going to help me to buy into what he's saying. A doctor who's not saying, well, this is definitively what it is, because later on, it could be something else. That first initial diagnosis, yes, that's what he's feeling right then. But with further looking into it, after he sees the blood work, after he sees the X-rays, or after he has the MRI or a CAT scan, these are clinical tools that he's got to look at. Getting to know what your sleep habits are, getting to know what your stress level is, getting to know if you're drinking alcohol or using drugs. He needs to know everything about you. And then you got to be honest with him. He can't make a diagnosis unless you're honest with your doctor. So if you're coming in and you want to hide something, I'm not doing drugs. If you're doing drugs, you know what? You got to tell the doctor you're doing drugs, because that can make a difference in what he diagnosed, or what he's going to tell you is your course of action. And that course of action, it has to be something that both of you can agree on. A lot of times, we have doctors give you these expectations or these things to do, and you can't do them. You physically can't do them. You mentally are not prepared to do them. So he needs to know that. What is your level of competency in completing these tasks that he wants you to do? Mm-hmm. And if you don't, why are you going to the doctor?
Well, another point that you brought up is, about compliance. And, your doctor gives you a regimen to follow. you know, everybody, and I'm guilty too. We all know better than our doctor. So when a doctor says, "Hey, take this medicine," blah blah blah, I'm like, I ain't taking that. That stuff ain't gonna work, you know. And sometimes I'm not saying the doctor's always right, but you know, sometimes you have to give it time. Now let's talk about this. You have a couple kinds of doctors. You have the doctor who's on the payroll, who, you know, I need to give you 10 milligrams of this because I'm getting a check.
Right.
And you have the doctor who cares about you and your well-being. And then you have doctors with different ideas. Now, you're in the mental health area. I have ADD. So when I went to my doctor, I had a doctor who had ADD. He told me, he says, "Hey, man, you know, you're nuts." So I talked to him about what was going on. He told me the signs. He says, "You know how I know? Because I have it too." So he gave me some things to do that would help alleviate the confusion, because a lot of the issues with when you deal with ADD, it's the people around you have to deal with it too, right? They have to deal with your traits and what you do. And he said, if you let them know, then they'll understand, because now they know why you do what you do, right? So they can, because Brian, I'll give you an example. Brian used to go out with me. Once I told Brian and Marcus and Kenny, all the guys, I said, here's the situation. So they knew that I would have a lot of things going on and they would take up the slack. So we would be out shooting and doing a job, and people will come up to me, want to give me their cards, and, you know, can I call you next Thursday? Brian would take their cards, and Brian say, "Yeah, give them to me." And he would let me know, "Hey, you know, this person wants to call you on Thursday, Wednesday, whatever," because he was more organized. So a lot of times when you take the information a doctor gives you and you implement it, it can be a better situation, right? But also, when that doctor went away, you know, I kind of was able to get a hold of everything, but I had issues later on where we're like creep back in. Sometimes you have those days. So I said, I'm going to the doctor, and I'm going to, and he gave me, here's what's funny. He gave me something to take, right? I don't know if it worked because I took it once and forgot to take it again. So a couple years later, I said, maybe I need to go back and try this medication. So I go back, and there's a different doctor. So, and it was a woman, and I talked to her and I said, "Hey, look, you know, I'd like to try this out because, you know, the previous doctor said for me to try it." And her philosophy was, "Hey, I don't believe in medication for ADD." So she said, maybe you need to try meditation. Why don't you try this and try that? And I was like, just give me the pill, man, because the meditation ain't working, right? So there's different levels of it that you have to go through before you get to that happy medium. You know, it's a trial and error basis, you know.
Definitely so. Definitely.
So Dr. Benson, I want to bring you in here really quick, because I know you have some things you want to talk about in the health realm that you might want to ask Dr. Mr. Vince. So I want to give you an opportunity.
Hey, thanks, and a great hello to everyone, and thanks, Ed. It's always good to hang out with you, man. I mean, we always do positive things when we visit in this space. But the thing that I thought that Vince said that really resonated with me was you have to discern between in function nowadays within the business of medicine, insurance companies, et cetera. Just recently, I had to have a colonoscopy done, and I thought my insurance company covered all of it. Well, after I've had the procedure and, you know, I did everything I was supposed to do, now I get this bill for what I thought I didn't have to pay for. So that's another deterrent, if you will, these days for people as far as making sure that they take care of their health, because it's expensive now. You can't just go into places now without insurance or having some sort of established means to cover the procedure. But the other thing I'd like to add is that we're all at that age now where funerals and all this other kind of stuff is starting to become social events. I hate to put it that way, but we really are now dealing, and we have to really be very, very cognizant of our health now, because we're at that stage where if we don't do the things we're supposed to do, to Ed, and Doc are talking and Vince are talking about, we will be that subject or we will be that person everyone is coming to see or coming to visit. But my recommendation is as you both have alluded to, is to stay current on your procedures, get your checkups, get that blood work done, and then have that intense and personal communication with your provider, be it the mental provider or the physical one. Because if you don't, then you're going to wish you had, and then there's not a whole lot you can do. Shoulda, coulda, woulda is one of those worst things that you have to deal with. But again, I would just say for sure, make sure that you are periodically visiting your doctors, not just every other, not just when you don't feel well. Make it a part of your life's routine. Get a physical every year. Talk to someone about your mental and physical health. Use your family, the people who are the closest to you, and tell them to give you feedback on your behavior, even the physical or the mental behavior. I'll give you an example. Just recently, I was talking to my wife, and she told me, she said, you don't seem to be as steady as you used to be. You're rocking. You might be, swaying back and forth. I come to find out, I was a little dehydrated because it's been very hot. I haven't been drinking enough fluids. But those are the kind of things you have to do. You have to. It's a team effort, if you will. Don't just rely on your own devices because, while we are credentialed to do certain things, we're not necessarily medical doctors. And medical doctors aren't entirely credentialed to do everything either. Most of them are specialists, and they deal and work within particular areas, that sort. So, but thanks for engaging me. I appreciate it. Like I said, I just had a procedure myself, and I'm always trying to figure out what's the best way to go about doing things. But again, one of the deterrents that we're dealing with right now is the economics of it, and making sure that we can afford to take care of our mental and physical health. That's a very, very serious issue right now.
Well, when you talk about, colonoscopy, and we have a different variety of ages on this call. We have some young, some old, but a lot of the older men have done that already. And the younger ones, it's coming for you. But I remember, all I heard was horror stories about, hey man, because first thing they say, when you're going to turn 50, they're like, oh man, you're about to turn 50. What? I said, what's that mean? You have to get the colonoscopy, man. Yeah. I said, huh? They said, yeah, you got to get the colonoscopy. I said, what's that? They said, oh, you don't want to know, right? So, you hear all this stuff and other people who've had it. Of course, there's different reactions, but basically, you have to be checked for colon cancer. And what they're doing, they're looking for polyps. They're looking for any discrepancies there. But the process itself is, they give you all the stuff to drink. Yeah. Best time to do it is on a Monday, because on the weekend you can drink all the stuff, and it's to clean out your system. Exactly. Okay, you want to clean out your system because they want a clear view of what's happening in there. Okay, so you're drinking the stuff all weekend. You take your TV and your newspaper to the bathroom because you're on the throne.
You're going to be there for a while.
You're going to be there for a while, right? So you're in there taking care of business, right? So now Monday comes, you go to the doctor. And, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't like you can't control yourself and this and that and the other, right? So I go to the doctor, and it's actually, you don't go to the hospital. Well, I didn't. You go to a facility like your regular doctor is.
Outpatient.
And they do the procedures, right? So, okay. So I go in, and I get there, and they tell you, put the robe on, and, there's a bunch of cubicles. If you ever been to the emergency room, you have a bunch of cubicles. They're just curtains separating everybody. Yep. So it's similar to that. So this is the colonoscopy farm, okay? So you got 10 people trying to get a colonoscopy, okay? So you're there, you get the robe on, you go out. The doctor, you lay on the gurney, they roll you out, and the doctor says, hey, look, this is going to be harmless. We're going to take a look. We're going to give you some anesthesia. Next thing you know, you'll be done. Okay? So They put the oxygen on. They said, count down to 1 from 100. And as a man, I'm like, I'm making it all the way to 100, all the way to 1. I'm counting down, right? I'm like 99. And I was going. So, okay, you wake up, it's over.
It's over.
So it wasn't that nightmare. So you wake up and everything is good. Now, the only thing is you wake up and they show you your chart. They tell you if they saw anything or not. If they saw anything, they'll say, hey, come back. We might have to do a procedure, remove a polyp or something. But if there's nothing, they say, hey, you know, everything was great. You can leave, but you can't leave, Mr. Benson.
Yeah.
You can't leave until you have passed gas.
Oh, hey, but I was going to mention, that wasn't a problem with that.
Well, wasn't my point. My point is, you're in a room with a symphony going on around you. Dun, 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 dun. It's like being at the opera. So, but once you do that, you can leave, let you out of there. Everything's good. So it's really not that bad.
No.
It's all in the mind. It's something you have to do because in the long run, there's a benefit to it.
Absolutely.
But back to you, Mr. Vince.
You know, I just want to say something about, you know, that we are trying to, let's say, compartmentalize everything. You know, you have these surgery centers because they don't want to put you in a hospital. But make sure when you go into one of these surgery centers that they can handle emergencies. Because a lot of times, you know, you get these little centers and they really, if something goes wrong, you in a world of hurt.
Yeah, they're not equipped to handle legitimate emergencies.
Right.
Things.
You can ask, hey, look, what happens? I fell down a flight of steps and I had to get a hip replacement. So I'm by myself. I live in a 3-story house. So I said, look, I can't go back to my house because I'm the only one there. You know, my kids live out of town. I can't afford a housekeeper to come in. So I said, look, I got it okay with my insurance company to take me to another center for a couple of weeks until I'm like up and really moving around and can help myself.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, don't worry, Mr. Faust, we got everything covered. That was like a month out. 2 weeks out, they said, yeah, we got you covered. I get in for that day. I'll go to the surgery center where they're going to do the hip replacement. This is all they do there on certain days. Then they do knees, they do shoulder. But this day was hips. It was on a Friday. The guy and I got through the hip replacement and everything, and they got me back to the room. And then next thing I know, the lady's getting ready to say, well, we're going to discharge. I said, discharge what? I said, no, I'm supposed to go to another facility. She said, well, that's not been arranged. I said, well, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving this facility. She said, well, we closed up. I said, no, you're not closing up this weekend. And guess what? They had to bring on somebody for the kitchen, 2 nurses around the clock for me until I could walk down that hall. Until I could get up 16 steps because I know how many steps are in my second floor to my only bathroom. Well, 1 or 2 bathrooms in the house, but each one of my bathrooms, you got to do some steps. So make sure that they don't just ship you out. Make sure that surgical center knows exactly what your needs are. It's not just that operation. It's what's going to happen after that operation. It's what's happening before that operation. So make sure you have that stuff, you know, written down in writing. This is what they're going to do. And this is what you're going to do. Because a lot of times somebody drops the ball and they dropped the ball. But I didn't go home. Friday, I ain't go home till Monday. So,
well, you know what? And that's a part of the empowerment process. And that's something we want to emphasize to everyone who's here. You know, when we're done, we have a document with some resources for you for different things that you can get more information on. But also we're going to, in a couple minutes, we're going to open up the floor to anybody who's on the call who might have something they wanted to talk about or a question that they wanted answered. But in the meantime, I want to bring one of the guys on, Brian Chacon. And Brian worked with us for many years. And, you know, he wants to tell you his journey. And I got to tell you, I remember we were shooting a health fair. We were, doing interviews and things like that. This was a few years ago. Remember, Vince?
I
And
remember.
we they had a station, and they would check your blood pressure and stuff for free. So Vince said, "Hey, Brian, you need to go get your blood pressure checked, man. It's free." Brian says, "Oh, da 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 da." And at the time, Brian didn't have health insurance because health insurance, like Vince said, is really expensive. And, I don't even think there was Obamacare at the time, right?
Nope.
So Brian went over there. They strapped him in. He almost blew the machine up. They were like, they're like, yo, man. Brian's blood pressure was so high, he was sweating barbecue sauce. That's how bad it was. So we said, hey, Brian, look, we're worried about you, man. You need to, take a look at your health and see what you can do. And Brian worked on getting some health care. But I'll let Brian tell you this story.
Oh man, I remember that day, and the number was so high. I think they actually looked at me and said, "Hey, do you need us to get you an ambulance to take you to the hospital and get this checked out?" I went, "Ah, don't worry about it. It's been high a long time. Don't worry about it." And like everybody has said so far, we men are terrible at this. There are some men that they grew up to really monitor their health and do what they're supposed to do all the time, but then the majority of us aren't. And my problem had been when I lived in Jersey, I had a doctor. Like 45 years ago, I had a doctor. And me and the doctor, we were cool. He was a good doctor, but he knew me, I knew him, and I would go, if there was something wrong, because at the time I was full-fledged in the construction. I needed to get my tetanus shots and different things, so I was going. Once I got away from him, part of it was no insurance, but the other part is it's hard to find that connection. Like Vince said, you have to feel comfortable with the doctor, and I'm that person. I need to feel comfortable that the doctor actually cares about me, actually wants to be there to help me. And I have to say, I am so blessed. I am thankful for you guys for staying on me about getting to the doctor. But I finally got to a doctor, and the first thing she did was she sat down before we did anything else, and she said, "Hey, tell me about you. What have you done? What kind of work have you done? Just tell me, give me what's going on." And she didn't rush me. She didn't race me through it. She took her time. I was able to explain to her, "Hey, this is what I've done. This is that." And, with that, she listened. And after I got done, she said, "Well, this is what I'd like to do." She said, and the key thing was she said to me, "Do you want me to be your doctor?" She didn't just assume that she was going to be my doctor. She asked me, "Do you want me to be your doctor?" And I was like, "Yes." And from then on, she's been steering my health. I cannot say enough about her. Um, so, as you guys know, I've been through 2023 was an interesting year for me. So between the cataracts, I had cataracts. I was about 5 minutes from needing to see an eye dog and a stick. Uh, then there was the ongoing pressure situation, so I dropped about 35, 40 pounds, and just kind of changed how I was living and what I was eating, my quantity portions, and it everything finally, fell in line. And I can't say enough. I did the cataract surgery for both eyes. That was I can't tell anybody enough. Do the surgery. Don't put it off. Trust me when I tell you. And like Ed was saying, most of these procedures now, we're not in the dark ages anymore. So guys, we're not in the dark ages anymore. And I tell them, look, I don't really care what you do to me while I'm asleep. As long as when I wake up, I'm able to move, I'm able to talk, and I'm okay when I wake up. Hey, put me to sleep. I'm not upset about it. I don't really want to feel any of it. And you don't feel most of the stuff that happens to you. And you go under for the cataract surgery, when you come up, boom, you're seeing out of that eye. And they waited a week and I came back, did the other eye, boom, they knocked that out. Now I had the colonoscopy journey. That was interesting because I did everything they told me to do, but of course with me, I always say God takes care of babies and food. I'm crazy. The doctor gets done with my colonoscopy. When he looks at me, he says, "Look," he says, "we were able to get through." He says, "But," he says, "honestly, I don't want to do your colonoscopy, the full colonoscopy here, because it was one of those satellite places." He says, "I need you to do your colonoscopy at the hospital." He said, "Because you have an unusually long colon." I said, "I have a what?" He said, "You have an unusually long colon." I said, "Well, okay."
Hey, Brian, you can use that at the club when you talk to him.
Yeah.
When you talk to, hey, I'm Brian. Hey, girl, I have
Hey,
an
baby,
unusually
I'm the
long
guy with
colon.
the long colon. So it was, so I
He
had
didn't mean he
to
can
get,
fart longer than anybody else. It was
you know what I'm saying? But the one thing I will say, like, there are drawbacks to it, and I have to tell you, I don't know if this happened to anybody else, but I have to say, I used to be a really regular person, going to the bathroom pretty regularly. But I have to tell you, after that colonoscopy, my rhythm and timing was different. It took a minute. I want to say now almost a year, well, about 9 months since the colonoscopy. Now I'm kind of getting back to what my schedule used to be. But I have to tell you, those first couple weeks and the first month or so after the colonoscopy, it was different. And I guess it's because number one, you've evacuated everything, and then you got to kind of fill it back up, and then you don't realize how much full of stuff you are.
Right.
yeah.
So it's all part of that. But now my latest journey here, and I have to tell you, thank you guys. You guys have been with me through the whole thing. I am blessed with a fantastic support system, friends like you guys, family that have all been here. Um, so the latest was I got the PSA. My number was high. Now they say the normal is like 1 to 4, like Les was saying. I was at 6, so it wasn't 327, but it was 6. So they wanted me to go and check it out. I went to the urologist. The urologist sent me for an MRI. I did the MRI, and then he came back and said, "Well, there's something we need to take a look at." He says, "It's not nothing crazy. There's no massive amount of lesions or anything, but we need to do a biopsy. But now with the MRI, we'll know where to target the biopsy." So I did the biopsy a couple of weeks ago. I got the results back, and with my uh, great Grey's Anatomy doctor's knowledge and degree, I looked at the results and said, "Ah, well, it ain't too bad." But like they sent me the information, say, "Hey, wait till you talk to your doctor." And I talked to my doctor, so they told me I do have some prostate cancer going on. Uh, he thinks it'll be handled with surgery. So far, it is contained in the prostate. So this now speaks, I think, to the mental health side. Like Vince was saying, it's getting your head around. We can, sometimes we can either overthink or not think enough. It's one or two things. It's never in the middle. It's always one or the other. But I had to kind of really just get my head around what does that entail? What does it mean? Um, Again, thank goodness I've got a couple of friends and brothers that have gone through it. They've gone through both the chemo and the actual surgery. So I'm scheduled to meet with the oncologist in July. And then after that, I go back and talk to the urologist, and then we come up with a course of action, And
Well,
and
you
now,
know what, sir? I'll tell you what. One, we're praying for you,
Amen.
and
yeah,
we're here for you. Number
yeah,
one, but also when you look at the scheme of things, that's information you might say, "Well, I didn't want to find that out," right? But
right,
as we talked about before, if it wasn't for you getting the health care, you would
right,
not have found those things out, right?
right,
So,
right.
a question that we have on the line, and so all the guys out there, you can unmute your mics to answer this question if you like. The question is, why are men afraid to go to the doctor? If that's the word, it might not be afraid is the word, but why don't men like to go to the doctor? And I'd like to hear from somebody in the audience if that's possible.
And open it
Um,
up to the women too, because they know their man.
Yeah.
Oh
right.
yeah, I'm going to talk about that too.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Um, a lot of things that go on are hereditary too.
Who is that?
'Cause
That Ty?
That's Tyrone
me,
Hey,
Williams.
Ty, what's up, man?
what's up, bro?
Hey,
How you
what's
doing?
up, man?
I'm all right. Like me and my sister got the crappy genes, so I tried to tell my brother to get checked out because maybe his is dormant and ain't come up yet.
Right,
But me and her both have similar complications. But fortunately for him, he hasn't had to deal with them. But um, but in other situations, I guess I got some old weird gene because there's 147 employees at my job, and then 2 women in this house, and everybody got COVID but me. So I guess I got some crazy gene that blocked it, but I'm not mad about it. But
okay.
just like you, Brian, they told me mine was extra long too.
A couple of
I had to
players
go
here.
I had to go back for a sequel.
They had to do. Hey, they had to do his colonoscopy in 2 parts.
Yeah. They look they only can do it for a certain amount of time. Then they said we got to come back. The
Right, you
insurance
got to
only
come back.
pays for
Hey,
so
we
many
ran
minutes.
out of gas.
Man,
Literally.
I almost left there and was getting ready to tell them, look here, y'all blew the chance because you had me here once. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, hey, and that's a good point because, like you said, that's another reason where, it makes you not want to go back. But here's, I think it goes back a long ways. If you go back, you look at to the Tuskegee experiment,
Oh yeah.
you look
Oh
at
yeah.
a lot of other things where, you know, black men were manipulated by the medical system being tested on and things like that. And the other thing is the healthcare system doesn't always work in your favor either. Right. So there's a lot of different reasons. You know, some of it is cultural. Some of it is, you know, because of the way men are raised. But I think that when we go as an example to other people, to our children, as a matter of fact, then you break that cycle. Because if our parents or our fathers didn't go, and the older generation was telling us, hey man, you know, stay away, whatever. Yeah. If your kids see you going regularly, and they might even go with you sometimes, then it's normalized, right? So there's really no issue, and you know, going to the doctor is no big deal. So I think that's a part of what we have to do.
You know, what I would say too, Ed, I'm sorry, Brian. What I would say is that you're making yourself vulnerable, and I think that's one thing men just don't like to do. We don't want to be vulnerable. You know, we want to show strength, and sometimes you got to do away with that ego, and that's really pretty much what it boils down to.
And that's huge. It's because, you know, it doesn't sound like much, and this speaks back to what Vince was saying earlier about the mental health side of it. Those of us of the boomer generation, you know, we had a different mindset, and we were raised with a different mindset. That mindset was, number one, if it don't hurt, you're going to be all right. The second is, oh, you know what? Take some Robitussin. That take care of the other half of it, you know. And then the other part was, oh man, stop whining and don't be a baby, you know. So between those messages that were given to us, we're kind of hesitant, you know, to go. And number one is like, well, if I don't know about it, then maybe it'll be all right. That's the other craziness.
Yeah.
And nowadays, it's better that we have, like, these conversations are important. It's important to talk, you know, pull our younger men to the side and let them know. You know, I was talking to somebody's son the other day, and I said, hey, you know what, man, you have, you know, he's got a family. I says, you got to be concerned about what you're doing with your health, because he was kind of, you know, it's going to be all right. I said, look, man, you got a family, you know, and now, if nothing else, a man will react to the fact that he's got a family and he's got somebody that he's got to be responsible to and take care of. And that will get you to where you need to be sometime. And I had one of my customers, to be honest with you, when I finally did get to the doctor, it was one of my customers that I was working at her house, and she never let up on me. I have to say, she stayed on me. Like, and I was at her house, working at her house a few months. So she let me go 2 or 3 days, and then she said, hey, Brian, do you make that appointment to the doctor? No, I'm going to get ready to do that. Okay. She wouldn't say nothing for another 4 or 5 days. If I showed up on Monday, hey, do you make that appointment with the doctor? And she did that for a couple months. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm so tired of you asking me that I make this appointment with the doctor. But hey, it got me there, and you know,
that's what we need. We need the encouragement, and we need to be the encouragers as well. I want to take a second. I want anybody out there who has any questions to unmute and ask a question or a comment that you might have. And yes, the women can say something too.
Please.
Please.
Yeah, you know, and you know, one of the things I want to emphasize to people is that we have to start educating ourselves. You know, and not just that anecdotal stuff you get off the internet. We have to look at real information, real science.
Right.
You know, one of my background things is I'm a biochemist. I grew bone in a test tube. You know, I was like one of those real Frankenstein scientists. But the thing is, we have to start looking at real information. Not like, this guy that got in office now, they're not looking at real information. They're looking at anecdotal stuff that says it's like a snake bite. 9 times out of 10, if you get bit by a snake, you're not going to die. You might get sick, but you're not going to die. So if the person stubs his toe and turns around 3 times and he doesn't die from the snake bite, everybody says, oh man, that's the cure for the snake bite. Every time they get bit by a snake, they hit the toe and turn around 3 times. And, hey, I didn't die. It must be real. We got to stop looking at that type of information. We have to look at real information. Yeah, Facebook is not the place for real information. And if you should get some information on Facebook, you need to look it up. You need to look at some real sites that actually examines things and go on that information. And if you do have a condition, just because the doctor tells you have that condition, you need to look up that condition yourself. You need to find out, you need to educate yourself about what's going on with your body. Because, when I went to the lab, he said everything that you learned, I thought I was a hot shot. He said everything that you learned in that school was 10 years old. So you have to look at what information is out there. You have to look at real studies, not just the one where they had like 20 people or Uncle Sal did this and he came out all right. No,
Hey,
look at real information.
Let me ask you a question about that, though. There's this large push out there for telemedicine. Now, how do you think that aligns with this movement afoot, if you will, for people to do and be more cognizant of their own self-care? Do you trust those people to do those types of things for you online, face-to-face, computer face-to-face interactions and encounters and things of that sort?
Well, still, there's a place for the telemedicine. All right, I'm not going to completely throw it away, but we have to find what actually works. Is this thing effective? Nothing beats going to the doctor and sitting in that chair and him touching your body and looking in your mouth, looking in your ear, looking in your eyes, and actually looking into your soul, asking you about yourself. On a video, like right now, unless I was in a studio looking at my guests, it's kind of hard to get the real feel of the person's soul when you're looking through a camera. Yeah, I mean, we're doing okay right here. But with medicine, that doctor's got to look at you. He's got to see you. He's got to see whether or not you're fidgeting. He can tell if you're not telling him the whole truth. And then with this telemedicine, there's a time limit. You only get paid for a certain amount of work. For a certain, like within the hour or 45 minutes, you got to come up with a diagnosis. You got to get your paperwork in, and it's got to go out. You got to have the codes in there. All that stuff has got to be done within that time limit, especially with mental health. You go to some of these clinics, man, those clinicians are under the gun. When they clock that patient in, they got a certain amount of time, listen to that patient, get the note in. That means come up with a prognosis and get that note into the system. So we got to look at medicine and look at that profit level.
For profit,
This,
right.
like I said, is good for certain things, but we have to look at whether or not it's effective.
Well, I think this is an effective way to kind of get things out in the open, have men talk about some things that, they might not normally talk about. Sometimes you have to be spurred on to really understand how important it is. And also, when you hear the story of your brother, where, we all go through some of the same things. Some things are unique, but just to hear somebody else is going through what you are going through or has gone through what you're going through really helps a lot. And the other thing I'll say about that, because we're closing in here, is it's about a village. It's about a family. If you have people around you who will support you, because nobody can do it by themselves. So, hey, just when you're sick, you need help, right?
Exactly.
When you're looking for any kind of help, whether it's physical, mental, educational, anything like that could help you move to the next level and achieve. And also, we also have, we have to lift up our brothers who are doing the right thing, right? Because it's not easy. It's not easy to get out here and lose a bunch of weight. It's not easy to change your lifestyle. It's not easy to see a specialist. So, we have to continue to support that and continue to learn from it so that we can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, there was a question out there, Monica, I think, or Monique had a
okay.
question. Yeah.
Okay, Monica.
I think it's Monique, wasn't it?
Oh, Monique.
Yeah.
Monique, you have a question?
It was a question. Thank you for. I was kind of chuckling a lot.
I can't hear.
Can't hear you that
me?
well.
Oh Lord.
You're breaking up a
Can
little
you hear me
bit.
now?
We
Yeah.
hear you
Yeah.
now.
Hey, there you
Yeah.
go.
Oh, okay. I was kind of chuckling throughout the thing, especially hearing the stories from the men, because as women, we sitting back here saying, "Ooh, Lord, God knew who to give the babies to, because we couldn't trust y'all to have our babies. We could not trust y'all to have no babies." But y'all, I mean, I've been in the health and wellness field for many years, and I hear men all the time, and I hear women all the time. And one thing I would say about men, y'all kill us. And I'm gonna speak on behalf of women, and we could probably all speak up and be like, amen. Telling us what y'all not gonna do because of ego, this, that, and the other. Y'all want to feel comfortable with a doctor. I'm gonna ask each and every man on this call, how many times did the woman tell you no and you persistently went back and tried again and again and again, and you didn't know nothing about her?
I was the exception. Hell, you tell me no once, I'm done.
Or they brush you off. But it was all about something that you wanted. So we have to want better health and wellness.
Right.
I mean, we've heard from our clients, and we've all said it, we're going to die of something. Somebody say, like, they had to pressure you into getting your blood pressure checked. You knew your blood pressure was high before you went over there.
Right.
But why do men have to have that ultimate?
But can I make a comment?
Yes.
Can I? You said we can talk, and then you don't give us any time to talk.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Ed. I don't know.
My sister.
All right now. Don't make me come through that phone.
I told
That's
it.
my friend right there.
Yeah, man.
Get
We
him,
have.
Gene,
And
get him,
first
get him.
of all, just good evening, and thank you, Brother Brian, for including me in the call. I have a whole lot to say, and I'll try not to say it all right now. But I am a cancer survivor. I know, I understand the chemo chair, I understand radiation. I've had a colon resectioning. I understand about colonoscopies. I've had 3 C-sections, a gallbladder removed. I've got a little experience with health. And so when you speak, and I took care of my father all through his to the end with his prostate issues. I have brothers that, just mental illness strewn throughout my family. I mean, this is my exposure. So I have a lot of empathy and compassion. My major comment would be supportable. Be supportable. Allow us to love on you. And to, is it Monique? Yes. To her point, you're the head of the family, but we're the neck that turns the head. We were given intuition. We know when something is right for people that we love, and we know, and we're usually praying women. I'm speaking for myself. Yes, ma'am. We're praying women, and the Holy Spirit does give us a lot of insight. But what I find, is like men that I've experienced would rather die than to go to the doctor. And it's like, I say, okay, let's get that policy going.
And then they get mad at us when they be like, what? You just want me for the policy. No.
Because at the end of the day, we're left, to pick up all the pieces. You know, I was married twice, both of them are gone. There's an aftermath there from not taking care of yourself, you know. So I would ask that you search your heart, search your soul about being supportable. Don't push us away. We're here for you.
Mhm.
And that is my major comment tonight. It's going to be important for you to receive every blessing, every piece of support, every step of the way, because we can, you know, a lot of this stuff, we can overcome this. The other thing is, at this age, I mean, my Lord, I don't know anybody that doesn't have a bionic part in them. And I don't know many men that haven't had prostate issues, especially men of color. And I mean, they're so embarrassed. Okay, you're going to have ED for a while. You might wear a diaper, but you're alive. Listen, there's a lot of life after cancer. My issue was 12 years ago. It was breast cancer. It was not supposed to turn out like this, but it did. I'm here.
Mhm.
I'm here and I'm well. My mother, 45 years, breast cancer survivor, stage 4. Okay. There's a lot of life after cancer, and especially now they've got good medicine I didn't even get to have. They've done so much with it. But that embarrassment, that's what I wanted to bring up. Yes, you might
Okay.
have some dysfunction for a while. You might have to wear, you know, men diapers or pants or whatever it is, underwear. Let's talk about it and let us
Mhm.
support you. That's my comment.
Well,
Thank you so much.
and that's a good comment. I thank you for that. And you know, part of that is communication. Okay. And communication can go a long way, because we've talked about a bunch of stuff here tonight. We've talked about physical wellness. We've talked about mental
Mental.
wellness, even a little bit of spiritual wellness. But you know, one thing that I think reverberates across all areas is communication. Because one, you have to communicate to your doctor what the issue is. The doctor, on the other hand, has to clearly communicate to you, because see, you know, there's some doctors come in there rambling off some stuff and walk out the door, right?
Right.
And then there's the communication between your supporters and your family that lets people know I'm not okay. Okay. So that's a start. And I appreciate everybody getting on here. I appreciate our women with their great input. Any other guys out there have anything they want to say? Any questions?
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry,
Yes, you may.
because I know we touched on telehealth.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing telehealth long before it became a world-renowned name, telehealth, because being misdiagnosed is more detrimental than being diagnosed with something that you really might have.
Exactly.
Right.
And it happens more than not in our own community, especially with our African American women. If we say we're hurting, we're beyond the point of hurting. And they think our threshold or pain is not real. And I've always wondered, because I recently had a friend come to me just 3 weeks ago, just turned 50, and he opened up to me about prostate cancer. And he says, I can't believe this is happening to me. And I told him, this is not the end of the world. This is early detection.
Right.
Let's put our boots on, strap up, and let's go, you know? And I can't imagine how many more men are out there walking around, like we say, not acknowledging or not wanting to acknowledge or not look into. I am the eldest female in my family. I just turned 55.
Wow.
So when she mentioned cancer and all of that,
Keep going.
she mentioned cancer and all of that. It was, you know, heartbreaking, but I could relate to everything that she was saying, because it runs deep.
Right.
And knowing that I'm the eldest and thinking about what next, what now. So when I meet people like her whether it be virtually or not, I'm excited because it gives me hope. And you guys getting on this call and creating this community of wellness for men, mentally, physically, spiritually, is an awesome thing. And I hope
Thank
you guys keep it going.
Thank you.
And you know what? That's the plan. We need everybody to tie in with gooddaygoodhealth.net as we continue to grow. These are the things we want to do regularly. And we want to build a community, and a community that people can share their experiences, as well as learn some things, and as well as get connected to some things. And that's why I have up here a Men's Health Forum resources guide.
Oh,
And
okay.
it has some different information about mental health, heart and physical health, fitness and nutrition, fatherhood, relationships, and support. And that document's available for anybody. You can download it. We're going to put it on the webpage as well. When you go to gooddaygoodhealth.net, we're going to put it there so you can download it from now on till the end of time. But that's what we want to do. We want to keep you connected to resources, information, and a community that cares. Okay. So I want to thank everybody for jumping on. I'll give the guys one more chance. Anybody want to unmute?
I just unmuted.
Oh, okay. That's Mr. Stanley. He's finally figured out how to unmute.
Yeah, my privacy. I had to. You know, I'm not used to all of that.
That's okay. We're not all tech savvy. That's cool. What do you have to say, brother?
But a lot of what y'all was saying, I was listening, and what the young lady said about why men don't like to go to the doctors. A lot of us as Black men have pride in the way. But as you grow older, you're going to have to let that pride go and go get checked out by your doctor.
Yeah.
Because I've had colonoscopy. I'm in need of another one. But also where I'm at today, the doctor that I had been with for 20 some odd years, he was at Crozier Hospital.
Right.
And they are now closed.
Closed. Yeah.
Right.
So my next appointment for me having a primary care physician is September 2nd. And that's kind of hard for me. And that's everywhere.
Wow.
I've checked with a number of physicians, number of hospitals. They got me on a waiting list, so on and so on. Because I'm used to going to doctors. I don't have a problem with going to the doctors. I need to get checked. I just had a scare with my blood pressure last Wednesday, I believe it was. Time goes so fast, I can't even recall. But that Tuesday I was having, that Monday I had a headache. And it was very unusual because I haven't been having headaches. And so that Wednesday, I'm doing my regular things, taking the medicine. I had my blood pressure medicine. And so that Tuesday night, I went to the CVS and I talked to the pharmacist because I noticed my medicine had changed. I was on, it was a bigger, rounder pill. And then they gave me these little teeny pills, the Lodipine. And so I'm telling them that, no, that's not what I was taking. So the young lady says, well, they have them out at another pharmacy in Swarthmore. So I couldn't do that until that next morning. So that next morning, I go out there, get the medicine. They tried to give me the same thing. So I'm explaining to them, no, that's not what I was taking. And to no avail, it was like they wasn't understanding until one young lady, one Black young lady, she couldn't have been no more than 23, maybe 24. She took the initiative and went and grabbed the bottle, and they were the ones that I was taking. So she gave me them. I took one while I was there. But then when I got home, I was still having that headache. And so I went to the bathroom and I got lightheaded. I got dizzy. And also I have a blood pressure machine here. So my blood pressure was 168 over 108, 109.
Mm.
And so I got a dizzy spell. So I told my wife, we got to go to emergency because this is scary for me. I told her I ain't want to go to sleep and wake up with no dead arm. Mm-mm. So we go to emergency and they did everything, gave me an IV, took blood, did blood work, did an EKG, and then we were there maybe 3 hours. But to no avail, they never gave me anything for my blood pressure. So long story short, my blood pressure started going down. And I'm asking the nurse the second time she checked it, I said, I see my blood pressure going down, but y'all never gave me anything for it. And so I reminded her I did take the medicine that I usually was taking before.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was that medicine started kicking in. But also I had questions about, because like I said, I haven't been to the doctors, haven't been able to get to the doctors. And so I asked about, when they did the blood work, I asked them about my kidneys, my sugar. I asked them about everything because my concern is that I want to live. I want to be around. And they told me everything was great. Everything looked good. So, but that
Well,
being,
you know what? The one thing about the system is even a lot of people are using the emergency room as their family doctor because they don't have the access to a regular doctor. Plus, as you said, they're backed up. It takes a long time to get an appointment. You go to the VA, it's like you have to schedule it for 3 months. But that's something that we have to work on, and I guess I don't want to get into anything about, how we're going to make these things happen. But as a community, we need to be educated. We need to know the things to do when certain situations come around. And we need to, again, be connected because hey, I need to check up on Boz. I need to make sure I haven't heard from him in a day. All those things work together. Okay. Right. So I just want to say, appreciate everybody. We have to shut it down, but we're going to do it again. And again, go to gooddaygoodhealth.net. Make sure you guys connect with us, send us an email, follow us on social media. And we love you. We appreciate you. And we will let you know when the next forum will be and what the next topic will be. All right.
Sounds good. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So thanks, everybody. I appreciate you. Thanks, Dr. Benson, Vince, Brian, everybody online. We appreciate your support. And we'll be talking soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
Everybody.